Hello and welcome to the third ever episode of Hot on the Case. The support that you've given to the show is something I never expected. I've read every comment, every single review. This has been my dream for such a long time, and the fact that it's coming true because of you guys, I could never be more grateful. If you're watching on YouTube, please make sure that you're subscribed and you like and comment. And if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please make sure that you're following the show and you rate and review the show because it really, really does help. Hot on the Case is only 2 weeks old and has already charted in 12 charts in 9 different countries. It was the number 9 spot of all true crime podcasts in the UK and the number 13 spot in the United States. Like, that's cake. That's not real. That's unbelievable. And it's all because of you. So thank you so much. In this week's investigation, we are covering yet another unsolved mystery. A little baby boy who vanished all the way back in 2009, and to this day, his whereabouts are still unknown. Was 7-month-old Gabriel Johnson murdered or sold in an illegal underground black market adoption? Could baby Gabriel still be out there walking amongst us, being raised by another family with no knowledge of his true identity or that he is even a missing person? My name is Breanna, and I'm hot on the case. In December of 2009, Logan McQueary should have been celebrating his son's first Christmas, but Logan's ex-girlfriend had run off with his son. She wasn't able to be located and wasn't answering any of his phone calls. She would later tell Logan that she had murdered her baby, but would go on to tell authorities that she gave away her 7-month-old child in an underground black market adoption. Neither story could ever be proven, but both theories seem equally as possible. Whatever theory you believe, only one question remains. Where is baby Gabriel? Well, there's only one person that knows the answer to that question, and that's his mother, Elizabeth Johnson. Elizabeth Johnson is one of those people that was dealt a rough hand at life. Her own mother passed away when she was very young. She was raised in the foster care system. She was bounced around a lot. She was raised by her grandparents at one point. And children who are raised in an unstable situation usually lack some kind of emotional intelligence and have trouble bonding with other people. And there are definitely a lot of people that grew up in foster care that are not affected this way. I want to make that clear. But Elizabeth definitely was. Elizabeth was described as being manipulative, impulsive, impatient, detached, immature, with an explosive anger and unpredictable mood swings. She could be calm, happy, easy breezy, beautiful 1 second, and the next second be in a fit of rage, screaming and breaking things. This behavior not only continued but got worse as Elizabeth got in her first really serious relationship with a boy named Logan McQueary. Logan was a year older than Elizabeth, and he grew up on the street over from where her grandparents lived. So when the two of them decided that they wanted to make their relationship a romantic one, it seemed like an easy pairing. They were both young and attractive, and they grew up together. They grew up in the same friend group. But Elizabeth still had these really intense emotional outbursts anytime she got even a little bit angry. In my research, I actually found multiple stories of Elizabeth getting mad at Logan and just becoming extremely violent. She would break his property, she would smash windows or cut up his clothing. There was one instance where Elizabeth pushed Logan into a fire just because she got a little angry with him. So this is a very intense relationship. It's very violent and abusive on Elizabeth's end, and everything would only get worse when Elizabeth found out that she was pregnant. From the outside, it appeared that the young couple was excited for the arrival of their little bouncing bundle of joy, but in reality, Elizabeth Johnson was spiraling. She did not want this baby. She wanted to have an abortion or possibly even put him up for adoption the moment he was born. But for whatever reason, Elizabeth and Logan chose to keep their baby. And on May 3rd, 2009, Gabriel Scott Johnson came into the world. His father, Logan, was delighted. It was never an option for Logan to not have Gabriel, but Elizabeth was only struggling even more now that Gabriel was born. I have an older sister who has 2 children and 1 more on the way, and she told me once that a baby will only heighten your worst qualities. If you're an impatient person, a baby will make you impatient times 10. If your relationship is a toxic one, a baby will make your relationship toxic times 10. And this rings so true for Elizabeth once Gabriel was born. Elizabeth was struggling with motherhood. She was struggling with bonding with Gabriel. She was really, really impatient with Gabriel, and especially when Gabriel cried. She could not handle this baby crying, which is what babies do. She would often just scream at him or scream at Logan to shut that thing up. Logan said that he would go to work for the entire day, and when he came home, Gabriel was still in the exact same place where he left him. He was crying, his diaper hadn't been changed all day, and he hadn't been fed the entire day. Elizabeth was really struggling to bond with her new baby, but her relationship with her boyfriend Logan was also deteriorating as well. And when Gabriel was only a few weeks old, Elizabeth left with him. She just got on a plane and went to Boston to visit her grandmother after yet another fight with Logan. And this trip to Boston would ultimately change everyone's lives in this entire story forever, but I'll explain more on that in just a few minutes. When Elizabeth and Gabriel returned from Boston, Elizabeth continued to have these explosive, violent outbursts anytime she got angry. Anytime Logan or Gabriel made her upset, she would just blow up. She smashed windows, she destroyed Gabriel's crib, she was ripping up Logan's clothing, she was cutting up Gabriel's clothing, literally anything she could think of, and eventually Logan just had enough. He tried to make this relationship work, mainly for his son Gabriel's sake, but on December 8th, 2009, when Gabriel was about 7 months old, Logan believed that the best thing for him and Gabriel was to break up with Elizabeth for good. Little did Logan know was by breaking up with Elizabeth, this would be the last time he ever saw his son, Gabriel. Elizabeth obviously exploded on Logan, which didn't shock Logan at all because she always exploded on him. But what did come as a shock to Logan was when Elizabeth told him that she was planning on putting Gabriel up for adoption since he had just broken up with her. And not only that, Elizabeth told Logan that she already had a couple all lined up ready to adopt his son. So remember how I told you that Elizabeth and Gabriel went on that trip to Boston that would change all of their lives forever? So on the way home from that trip to Boston in June 2009, Elizabeth and Gabriel had a really long layover in Indianapolis. And during that long layover, Elizabeth met a woman named Tammy Smith. Now, this lady is a character, okay? And she really is the key to this entire case. If it wasn't for this woman, Tammy Smith, it's very likely Gabriel Johnson would have never disappeared. Tammy said when she saw Elizabeth holding her only a few weeks old baby in the middle of an airport during a long layover, she thought to herself, that looks like a woman that doesn't want her baby. Tammy said that Elizabeth looked frazzled and tired, and she thought it would be a smart idea to walk up to the stranger and ask her if she ever considered putting her baby up for adoption. Now listen, I don't think I've ever seen a parent in an airport with a newborn baby that didn't look tired, first off. Second off, that has to be one of the weirdest, most inappropriate, insulting things you could ever say to a young mother. you should put your baby up for adoption. But apparently, Tammy Smith was kind of known for going up to young mothers trying to adopt their babies. It's super weird. She's just super, super weird. Tammy already at this point had a 7-year-old daughter that she had adopted and was actively looking to adopt another baby when she met Elizabeth and Gabriel. The two women also conveniently lived really close to each other, even though they just met in this random airport in Indiana. Elizabeth and Gabriel lived in Tempe, Arizona, and Tammy Smith lived in Phoenix, Arizona with her family. So to Tammy, this seemed like divine intervention, like she was meant to raise Gabriel. And apparently these inappropriate questions coming from a stranger about whether or not Elizabeth wanted to put her baby up for adoption didn't offend Elizabeth. And she told Tammy that she did want to put Gabriel up for adoption, but that his father would never allow it. Tammy gave Elizabeth her contact information in case anything were to ever change. So fast forward 6 months later, Logan has just broken up with Elizabeth and she's furious. She goes and she finds Tammy's contact information and she calls this woman out of the blue that she hasn't spoken to in 6 months, and she tells Tammy, "Things have changed and I'm ready to give up my baby." Elizabeth then goes to Logan and tells him that she's putting Gabriel up for adoption and she's already got this couple all lined up. Giving Gabriel away was never an option to Logan. If Elizabeth didn't want him, he was ready and able to raise Gabriel all by himself. So just a few days later, after breaking up with Elizabeth, on December 11th, Logan filed for full custody. But what Logan didn't know was that Elizabeth had already given away his son to Tammy and her husband, Jack Smith. Gabriel was already in their custody, and they were plotting with Elizabeth on how they were going to adopt Gabriel behind Logan's back. Elizabeth had already signed her power of attorney over to the Smiths, who were, complete strangers. And then Tammy Smith starts harassing Logan over the phone, and she's never met Logan. This is a complete stranger to her. She's calling Logan and trying to harass him and pressure him into signing over his parental rights so that she can adopt his baby. Obviously, Logan refuses, but that didn't matter to Tammy and Elizabeth because they were just going to go behind his back and figure out how they were going to steal his baby from him anyways. Tammy was obsessed with the idea of adopting Gabriel, and in her mind, he was already her son. She was taking family photos with him. She took Gabriel to go meet Santa for the first time ever, which was actually something that Logan was really excited to do for Gabriel's first time ever, which he never ever got to do. Tammy was calling Elizabeth multiple times a day with different ideas and plans on how Tammy would be able to adopt her son without Logan's approval. Tammy went as far as to forge adoption papers with her male cousin's signature on it, pretending that her male cousin was Gabriel's biological father. It was absolutely madness. And to Elizabeth, this was never about not wanting Gabriel, although that was true. For Elizabeth, this was completely about getting back at Logan and hurting Logan in the worst way possible. On December 17th, Logan and Elizabeth had their custody hearing, and they were granted joint custody. And I know that this was over 10 years ago, and mothers usually have a better shot in custody cases, but it's really frustrating to hear that they got joint custody when you have one parent, Logan, that really, really wants this child, and another parent who doesn't at all. The judge also granted that Logan would have physical custody of Gabriel starting on December 20th through Christmas, since he hadn't seen his son in almost 10 days because his child was already unknowingly being raised by a completely different family. And Logan is really disappointed that he didn't get full custody, but he's excited to have Gabriel over Christmas. This was Gabriel's first Christmas ever. But after that custody hearing, Elizabeth told Logan that he would never see Gabriel ever again. When Logan attempted to gain physical custody of Gabriel on December 20th, no one was home at Elizabeth's residence. He peeks inside the windows and it looked like everything had been packed up and Elizabeth had just fled with Gabriel. So Logan tries and reaches out to the authorities to report this kidnapping, but according to custody law in Arizona, since Logan and Elizabeth weren't married, the mother, Elizabeth, could pretty much just do whatever she wanted with their child. So Logan once again filed for full custody of Gabriel because without it, the authorities' hands were pretty much tied. And a new custody hearing was scheduled for December 28th, which was like over a week away, and Logan told the court system he was worried for Gabriel's safety because Elizabeth had hurt Gabriel in the past whenever she was mad with Logan. For that entire week, Logan failed to get in contact with Elizabeth, but you know who did get in contact with Logan? No other than Tammy Smith. So you have this poor father who can't find his child. He can't find his baby. He's worried about his baby. And Tammy Smith once again calls him up to try and pressure him in to giving away his child so that he can adopt the baby and for him to give up his parental rights. Tammy actually told Logan that she had been in contact with Elizabeth since she had fled with Gabriel and that Gabriel would never come home unless he agreed to give him up. And then on December 27th, Logan got a text message from an unknown number, and it read, quite possibly, the worst thing a parent could ever read. And I quote, "You will never see Gabriel again. I made sure of that. And you can spend the rest of your pathetic life wondering about him. You will never find me. I'm already boarding a plane out of the country. When I'm safe, I'll email you the exact location of dead Gabriel's little blue body if the garbage don't come first." It's so terrible and disgusting and awful. I can't even imagine the gut-wrenching pain being a parent reading that about your baby. Logan then calls the number and Elizabeth picks up, and we actually do have a recording of this phone call because at this point Logan was recording every single interaction he had with Elizabeth during their custody battle. So I'm going to play you that recorded phone call now, but just a warning, it is absolutely disgusting.
Where are you? Where's Gabriel?
Gabriel's in the dumpster.
No, he's not.
Do you want to talk to the girl about the place today? We do this.
You did not hurt Gabriel.
Because I suffocated him. Because I put him in a paper bag and I put him in the trash can. You know, she cares about me. I care about his Gabriel. And he's gone now. You know what I'm capable of. And just pushed me anyway. You just destroyed my life.
I haven't destroyed anything.
Yes, you have, Logan. You made me kill my baby boy. So
to hear a mother speak so casually about killing her 8-month-old baby, about smothering her little baby, putting his body in a diaper bag, and then throwing him out like he means nothing, it makes you physically ill. But then for her to go on and blame Logan, the only real parent that baby has, is despicable. I truly don't even know what to say. The following day was that scheduled custody hearing for Logan trying to get full custody, and he came prepared with that text message and that recorded phone call. And since Elizabeth never showed up, Logan was awarded temporary full custody of Gabriel. And finally, Gabriel's disappearance could be investigated. And they began to piece together Elizabeth's movements over the last handful of days since she had run off with Gabriel. So after that custody hearing on December 17th, when Elizabeth and Logan were given joint custody, Elizabeth went and borrowed her grandfather's truck. She then met up with Tammy Smith to get Gabriel from her. Elizabeth then drove all the way to San Antonio, Texas, a city that she had no known connection to. And while in San Antonio, Elizabeth stayed at the hotel Homegate Studios with Gabriel, and at some point, Elizabeth hired a babysitter off of Craigslist to watch Gabriel. Elizabeth told this babysitter that if Gabriel cried, to give him medicine to shut him up, which implies that that is something that Elizabeth often did. Gabriel was last seen with his mother on December 26 at the hotel, and the following day, Elizabeth got on a bus to Florida without Gabriel. And to this day, no one has any idea where he is. Or do they? The truck that Elizabeth borrowed from her grandfather was found abandoned near the bus station. Inside was Gabriel's car seat, but missing was his blue and green diaper bag that Elizabeth claimed to use to dump his body in a dumpster. There was zero evidence of a crime being committed in this vehicle or that a body had ever been inside of this vehicle. Since Elizabeth claimed to have thrown away Gabriel's body in a dumpster, the local landfill was extensively checked, and Gabriel's body or his blue and green diaper bag were never ever found, and the authorities are certain that if his body was at that landfill, that they would have found it. On December 30th, Elizabeth was found and arrested in Miami, Florida. She's just out there in Miami partying while Logan is worried about their baby. And this is when Elizabeth changes her story and completely flips this case right on its head. Elizabeth told the investigators that she never killed her son, Gabriel. That was just something she told Logan because she wanted to hurt him. In reality, she went to San Antonio, Texas to give Gabriel away in an underground black market adoption. She claims that she met up with an underground adoption agency and she gave Gabriel up. And I know if you're listening right now, that sounds far-fetched. If you're listening and you've never heard this case before, I bet you don't believe that at all. You think that she's just worried about being arrested for murder, and she definitely killed that baby. So let's quickly break down the possible evidence that could prove that Elizabeth really did give away Gabriel and that he is quite possibly still out there right now. So Elizabeth had already previously tried to give Gabriel away to another couple, to Tammy and Jack Smith, and went as far as to try and forge adoption papers. Elizabeth drove all the way to San Antonio, Texas, which again was an area she never visited before, she had no known connection to. If the plan was for her to kill her baby, why would Elizabeth need to drive all the way to Texas to do that? And I really hope that doesn't come off as insensitive. It just doesn't make sense to me at all. Why would she need to spend all those days in that hotel with Elizabeth if the plan was just to kill him? Why would Elizabeth spend what little money she has on a babysitter for Gabriel if the plan was to kill him? And also, speaking of that babysitter, what was she doing during that time? Is it possible that she was meeting up with an underground adoption agency or possibly the couple that she was planning on giving Gabriel away to? At the time of Gabriel's disappearance, San Antonio, Texas was known as the dirty adoption capital of the United States, and the hotel that Elizabeth and Gabriel were staying at was right across the street from a notorious underground adoption agency. At the time that Gabriel disappeared, hotels like the ones that he was staying at in San Antonio, Texas, were kind of known as like baby handoff hubs. Pregnant women or young mothers with their young babies would check into these hotels and then later check out, no longer pregnant and no longer with the baby, but instead with a large amount of cash or some kind of gift as payment, like cars or jewelry, like that kind of thing. And at the time that Elizabeth was arrested in Miami, she was wearing a really nice ruby and diamond ring, which she had never been seen before, that was worth over $20,000. Elizabeth completely denied selling her baby and trading him for this diamond ring. She only claims that she gave him away in this like underground adoption. She claimed that she got that ring months earlier when she was in Boston hand modeling for a jewelry store, but absolutely no one believes that story, and it's never been able to be proven. Like, this jewelry store has never been like, yeah, we've given her that ring. Logan also says that there's absolutely no way that Elizabeth had this nice of a ring and he didn't know about it. He said he never saw that ring before, that they were often strapped for cash, that they were often late on the rent payments for their mobile home, and that if Elizabeth did have that nice of a ring, something worth over $20,000, that she would have pawned it months ago. Elizabeth claims on December 27th, she met with a couple that she never met before at a picnic table at Raymond Rimkus Park in San Antonio, and that she gave them her son, Gabriel. Elizabeth claims that she didn't ask them any questions. She didn't ask them where they lived. She didn't ask them their names. She didn't want to know anything about them, so she wouldn't be able to change her mind in the future in case she ever wanted her baby back. Elizabeth claims that she felt that this was the only way that Gabriel could have a good life, a life and a family that she was never able to have. On Elizabeth's cell phone at the time that she was arrested, it showed that Elizabeth had taken a photo of Gabriel like every single day in that hotel room, which is completely normal. Like, taking pictures of your baby every single day, multiple times a day, is completely normal for loving, normal parents, but it was very out of character for Elizabeth, and many speculate that the reason she was taking those photos was to show to this underground adoption agency or the couple that she was planning on giving Gabriel away to. On the last ever known photo taken of Gabriel on Elizabeth's phone, which was on December 26th, so the last day anyone ever reportedly saw Gabriel, he looks very sleepy and he's holding a bottle of medicine. So many web sleuths have theorized that maybe Elizabeth did go to Texas to give Gabriel away, but she possibly accidentally killed him by giving him too high a dose of medicine during one of those times that she was trying to shut him up. It's very sad, but honestly, it does seem possible. It also seems possible that Elizabeth gave Gabriel away to a couple in Texas, but the plan was always for Gabriel to end back up with Tammy Smith. Yep, Tammy Smith comes back in this case. Tammy admitted to wanting to adopt Gabriel and was willing to do anything in order to do so. She was researching a bunch of things online with her husband on how they could get around Logan's parental rights. She was forging documents. She was sending Elizabeth multiple ideas and plans every single day on how she could obtain rights and custody of Gabriel without Logan's permission. She was harassing Gabriel's father all the time for him to sign over rights of the baby. Elizabeth claims that she was sent to Texas by Tammy and that the couple that she gave Gabriel away to were friends of Tammy Smith. That the plan was for Tammy to kind of hide Gabriel, wait it out until things died down, and then she would be able to obtain custody of Gabriel from this random couple that I guess she's friends with in Texas. But they didn't expect, one, for Elizabeth to be found so fast in Miami, and two, for Gabriel's case to get so much media attention and become like headlining national news. And if that was the original plan for Elizabeth to give Gabriel up to a couple in Texas that's friends with Tammy, and for Tammy and her husband Jack Smith to eventually get Gabriel, they must have gotten scared and backed out, because as far as we all know, Tammy and Jack Smith aren't raising a son, and they never have. Phone records did prove, though, that Tammy was calling Elizabeth like nonstop when she was on the run with Gabriel. And Tammy actually called Elizabeth 20, 30, 40 times the day that Elizabeth claims to have given Gabriel away to this couple in Texas. And all of these calls are only a few minutes apart, which is definitely pretty suspicious. Also suspicious that Tammy's mother claims that that ruby and diamond ring that Elizabeth ended up with at the end of all this belonged to her daughter, Tammy. Now, while Elizabeth was in prison awaiting her trial, she actually spoke on the phone with Tammy, and we have a recording of that phone call. I'm going to play it for you now. One of the women on this phone call are lying. I need you to tell me which one you think are lying, because honestly, I'm having trouble making up my mind personally. Like, I'm not 100% sure.
We don't know what to believe, and we've told people, though, that over and over, that we believe that that baby's alive, and we believe that you did what you said, found the family and gave them the baby.
Yeah, you set it all up. They were your friends.
No, they weren't.
Yes.
Then who are they? Then what's their names if they're my friends?
I don't know. You set it all up in San Antonio. You told me to go to a shelter and pretend like I was being beat.
No, I told you instead of running and hiding and changing your identity, go to a shelter. Don't just go run and hide your identity. What is illegal? What was
Everything
illegal?
you told me to do from the very beginning was illegal. Lying about the paternity of the fatherhood, putting your cousin's name and number.
Okay, that wasn't, in my mind, that wasn't anything illegal. That was me helping you fill out your paperwork.
During the entire conversation, Smith never admits to having a couple pick up the baby at a San Antonio park December 27th.
Just so you know, we will be suing you. We will be suing you.
For what?
So, no. For what?
What? What did I do to you?
Destroying our lives. For destroying our lives with your lies and by keeping your mouth shut.
I didn't tell you any lies.
Well,
you ruined my life. From the very beginning, I trusted you and believed you, and you're totally not the person that you said you were.
Elizabeth, you have destroyed our lives.
In my personal opinion, they both sound like they're lying, but also maybe both sound like they're telling the truth. I don't know. I don't believe a single word that comes out of either of these women's mouths. They're monsters, in my opinion. Like I said, that's just my opinion. Tammy Smith has always denied having any involvement in Gabriel's disappearance, or if she even knows if he is still alive today. She has made some very disgusting comments in the media since all of this happened, blaming Logan, saying that this is his fault, that he doesn't know where his baby is because he didn't agree to allow them to adopt his child. It's just truly foul. Like, it's so disgusting. It's so terrible. She's so disrespectful. Tammy Smith was charged with custodial interference and forgery for when she forged those adoption papers with her cousin's name, and she was sentenced to 30 days in prison and 3 years of probation. I've never been able to get a good read on Tammy Smith personally, but there's something in my gut that tells me that Tammy Smith knows more than she is letting on. Gabriel Johnson's case is still officially listed as a missing person, although many of the lead investigators on his case believe that his mother, Elizabeth, did tragically take his life. Authorities could never find any evidence that Gabriel Johnson was murdered, but they could never find any evidence of an illegal adoption either. So Elizabeth was only charged with kidnapping, child abuse, custodial interference, and conspiracy to commit custodial interference. And while Elizabeth was in prison awaiting her trial, the lead detective on the case went and spoke to her in prison, and he did this without the knowledge of Elizabeth's lawyer or the prosecution's lawyers. You know, they weren't made aware of this meeting at all. He just kind of went behind everyone's back. The lead detective went and he went and spoke to Elizabeth in prison. And the lead detective claims that he has a recording from this meeting of Elizabeth admitting to him that she murdered her baby. But since at the time Elizabeth was in the mental health unit of the prison and was also apparently on some pretty hard medication at the time, this recording could not be used in her trial. But it's really confusing why she would admit to killing her child anyways, because she wasn't on trial for murder. She was on trial for custodial interference. And a lot of people ask, what kind of mother would kill their baby? Elizabeth Johnson seems to me like the kind of mother that would kill her baby. She gives me Casey Anthony vibes, and it's very possible, in my opinion, just like Casey Anthony, Elizabeth Johnson got away with murder. Elizabeth's charges of kidnapping and child abuse were dropped, and she was found guilty only on the custodial interference charges, and she was sentenced to only 5 years in prison with credit for the 3 years that she served while she was awaiting her trial and an additional 4 years on probation. So in 2014, Elizabeth Johnson was released from prison. It's very, very controversial since we know for 100% certainty whatever happened, if she gave him away in an illegal adoption or she murdered him, she's the reason that her son, Gabriel Johnson, is missing. And now Elizabeth is a free woman and she gets to just go on and live her life like nothing ever happened, like Gabriel never existed. I'm so sorry. I'm like choking up because it honestly really, really upsets me. And the next part upsets me even more, and it's going to upset you a lot too. So the last major update we have on this case is that Elizabeth Johnson is currently married and living in New Mexico. She legally changed her name to Naomi Aragon and has since given birth to a daughter. She gets to be mommy to a little baby girl and pretend that Gabriel never existed and Logan never got the chance to be daddy to Gabriel. The biggest slap in the face I've ever heard in a case, truly. This one is really, really 50-50 for me on which theory I believe the most. Both feel equally as possible to me, but in my heart, I want to believe that Gabriel is still out there and is happy and safe and being raised by a different family. And he's being raised, under a different identity and just doesn't know that he is actually a missing person. Gabriel Johnson would be 15 years old now, and it's very likely that he will discover who he is first before anyone discovers that he is Gabriel Johnson. The most recent age progression shows what Gabriel Johnson would have possibly looked like at 12 years old. So if you're watching the video version, I will have that on the screen now. If Gabriel Johnson is out there, it's likely that he's in school and there are people that see him every single day. All it takes is one person to recognize him or recognize his story. It's possible you listening right now know of a couple who adopted a baby boy in 2009 and it kind of just seemed like all of a sudden here was this little baby boy. If you recognize this age progression, maybe you recognize anything about him, maybe you know absolutely anything, even if you think maybe you know something, you could be wrong, but you should still report it, because who cares if you're wrong? Because what if you're right? If you think that you have any information about the whereabouts of Gabriel Johnson, please call the San Antonio Police Department at 210-207-7781. Personally, I feel really conflicted about this case and what I truly do believe happened. My gut tells me that Tammy Smith knows more than she's letting on, and that Gabriel really is out there, and that one day he will be reunited with his father and get to meet his younger brothers one day. I'm really interested to get your thoughts and theories on this case. So please let me know all your takes in the comments. If you're watching on YouTube, please make sure that you like and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And if you're listening anywhere else, please make sure you're following the show and leave a review and maybe rate the show if you haven't already. Please also let me know what case you want us to investigate next, because I've been considering covering the JonBenet Ramsey case either this week or maybe next week. So let me know what you think about that, if you would be interested in getting my thoughts and theories and diving really deep into the JonBenet Ramsey case. But until then, that's all I have for this investigation, and I will see you guys next week when we are hot on the case once again.